Hey, hi everyone. You can hear me okay, right? Can you hear me okay? Okay, lovely. Once again, welcome to this session that Flowminder is organizing based on the mobility data that we produce in DRC and how it can be used for the current Ebola outbreak response in Ituri, but also in neighboring provinces and across the country. I'm going to start by introducing myself. I am Afia Yuma and I'm Flowminder's DRC country manager. And I'm here with my colleagues Romain and Linus, who would also introduce themselves. They are going to be the one leading this presentation. And initially, we planned to have the session in both French and English, given that the outbreak is in the DRC and it is a French-speaking country. But from what I'm seeing, can I just have a sense check that most of our guests right now are English speakers and would be more comfortable if we start a session in English. And then when it will come to the second part, when we talk about the data, we can mix both English and French. Can I just have a sense check? Maybe hands up if you are English speaker. That's okay. If you could just thumbs up. Yeah. Thank you, Melanie. Okay, so I've got a few people in. So we've got a few more people who are joining. Um, okay, I'm just letting people in. So we have more people. Thank you, Bernardo. So we have a few more people who have just joined. Some of them are DRC based, but I know that they do understand English. So we're going to start off. The first part would be in English, and then, like I said, the second part would be in French. And for your question, you can ask them both in French and English. And we've scheduled a session to run for about 30 minutes, but we will see how it goes. If some people have time to stay for another maybe 20 minutes. We will be available to carry on the discussion. So without further ado, I'm going to be passing over to Linus, who's going to start the presentation. Linus, over
Great.
to you.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Afia. So I'm Linus Bengtsson. I'm the chair of the board and co-founder of Flowminder. And so we'll keep it relatively brief, as Afia said. And if you do the next one, please, Roman. Great. So I'll talk a little bit first about the partnership between Vodacom and Flowminder and the data that we're analyzing. And then, Romain, you'll talk about key findings on regarding mobility in Ituri. We'll guide you to where you find reports and data, and then we'll have Q&A. And if you have requests for further analysis, we'd love to know what you need, and I'm happy to discuss that. Good. Next one, please. So we've had a great partnership with Vodacom Congo ever since 2018, and we've been answering to a number of humanitarian crises. And Vodacom has really been a fantastic supporter of our work, and that has led to a regular support to the Minister of Health and now public reports that goes out on population mobility and migration. And if you go to the next slide. Good. So this is it's all analyzed in a privacy safe manner at Vodacom on their premises. So and the data that comes out are all aggregated privacy safe group level statistics. And so Vodacom has about 26 million subscribers and coverage across the whole country. We then combine so that data contains mobility of the mobile phones across the landscape, and then we combine that with survey data to adjust for biases, because not everybody has a mobile phone and not everybody uses Vodacom. so that we adjust for that. And so at the monthly level, we produce for each health zone of DRC. There are some health zones where there is not coverage, but the vast majority have coverage, and we provide data for them. And we provide them data on the number of people who have changed their main location from one health zone to another in the past month. So we get the outflow from one health zone to another, and then inflow correspondingly to each health zone. And we also sum up the net population change per health zone. So every month we have an updated population estimate for that health zone, and you'll see that in the slides that are coming. And this is very generally relevant to development and humanitarian work, but when it comes to Ebola, of course, it's especially relevant to know to where people move from the outbreak area. That informs you where to place surveillance resources and where there's a heightened risk of new outbreaks. Of course, it's very valuable to know the population of the health zones. We will see that some of these health zones that have been now have cases have a very strong population growth, and it's not very strange that we see spread in this area. Good. And so as I said, we provide data at the monthly scale. We hope to provide data at the daily scale going forward. We don't have all the approvals for that yet, so there's some discussions that need to take place with the government, and we'll coordinate that. But we very much hope to be able to provide that type of data going forward. Good. Let's see, take the next one. So I think that's over to you, Roma. I think everybody here is quite comfortable in English, but that's my guess.
Yeah, I guess, or let me know, do we want this in English or should I continue in French?
I think in English would be good.
I think it's better. Yeah.
Okay.
English, yeah.
Okay, fine. And so I'll take this in English, and if there are things that aren't here, or if we need to translate some of the things in French, we can take it after. Yeah, so thank you, Linus. So I'll guide you through some results that have been very okay, let me turn on the pointer. So some of those results have been produced very recently, so they've been made for the purpose of having some visualization to follow the current outbreak in Ituri. So I'll guide you through some of them. I'll keep it relatively short. It's possible that you might not understand fully everything. I'll try to describe as best I can. But if something isn't here, we can go back to it at the end during the discussion. So feel free to take notes, and if you have questions, we'll get back to them. So this first map I'm showing you, so that's the province of Ituri. We are looking here at data on March 2026 because we are looking at, say, from recent data, general mobility in the region. So here we want to drive or take out general patterns of mobility in the province here. So on the left-hand side, you can see a measure of the absolute turnover per health zone. So in each health zone, I'm measuring the amount of people that have relocated in the health zones and relocated out of the health zones. Relocation meaning we assume for a specific month a person is living in a particular place and has been moving during this month to another place, right? So we are talking about the location of where people live. So measuring this inflow and outflow here on the left-hand side, so it gives us an indication on what I'm calling the absolute turnover. We can imagine the absolute renewal of a population, the amount of people that will be new in a place. On the right-hand side, the relative turnover. So if I'm looking at my sum of inflows and outflows for each health zones, divided by the current population in this health zone. So relative turnover, so for a full population, it's giving me a rate month by month of the renewal of this population. How much of the population that is in this zone is new compared to the months previously. So what we can already observe from these data sets, so here I've flagged some of the health zones, which I think were the main health zones that were mentioned, at least for this recent outbreak of Ebola in the province of Ituri. So we have Mongwalu, Bunia, and Ukende, and you can see that those are provinces that tend to also have a very high rate of mix compared to the other health zones in the area. So that's already what kind of information we can extract from the data we provide. Here I'm talking turnover at the scale of the health zones in the province. We also have the spatial connections, right? So we can also have a sense month per month of the relocation of people and have this connection between, area of interest and where people are going. So here I'm showing you another simple example, still for the month of March 2026. So if we focus on Ituri, and here I'm only mapping the largest flows. So that's a selection of them. I think here is the top 70 flows. So top 70 relocation during the months from the province of Ituri. From all the people of Ituri, we can see where people have moved to or where people come from. So it gives us an indication on the origin and destination of population. So we have a sense of the mixing amount, and we have a sense of where do these people come from. So again, in the case of Ebola, information that can be very valuable to have a sense potentially of the propagation of such a disease in space. I haven't really described the map here, but the values you can see here is the total monthly relocation. So inflows plus outflows here. So you can see exchanges from Ituri to Owele toward the north, North Kivu, also Chopo to the west. Now looking at the province scale, of course, we can decide to break down this information per health zone. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to show you 3 examples now. Again, a little bit rapid fire, but of health zones in Ituri. And we're going to look at the information we provide and we have available for these particular places. So the 3 health zones of interest where we assume or we think the outbreak started for the Ebola, this recent Ebola spread. If we start looking, for example, at the health zone of Bunia, so maybe it's a little bit difficult to see on the map here. What's important to remember is that the colors here tells you how many people arrived from the health zones of Bunia. So the color in these health zones tell me that many people arrived from Bunia during this particular months. I'm only mapping the departures here, and I know across the months I've had roughly 13,000 people leaving Bunia to start living essentially somewhere else. Among the biggest receivers, if we can call it this way, we have Wampara here, among Boilu, which are the 2 other health zones we're going to talk about in a second. So a lot of exchange generally we can see already from this data between these different health zones. So we can understand that having disease spreading there makes sense, but it is also problematic. More people relocating in Ituri, but we can also see, so even for population that are perhaps a bit smaller, so not as many people have relocated, but they've relocated further away. And we can see traces of people relocated from Bunia as far as a health zone here in North Kivu for this particular month, or in Makiso, Kisangani, in Chopo in March. I haven't talked yet about the information on the side here. But we can see in blue is our measure of population month to month for Bunia. This population, evolution of population through time, is a direct result of this arrival and departure every month. So the more people arrive, the more the population will increase. The more people leave, the more population will decrease. As a side note, if I look at this bottom graph here, so in black, this is my total amount of arrival, and in pink, my total amount of departure for each of the months for the past year. And so as a side note, here we can already detect that's an event that happened in the past. So in August, September here, there was some big inflow of people moving to Bunia due to conflicts in the area. So here, this is separate from the Ebola question. We can directly see the impact of large movement of population leaving areas impacted by a certain event, relocating in the provincial capital, that is Bunia, and the impact on population here. So we end up with a population that is increasing quite a lot, 10%, in a health zone that, even if generally we have arrival and departure that are equal and have no impact on population, so for population's sake, it doesn't matter so much. But if we are talking epidemiology, this matters a lot, because if we have a lot of exchange, even without influence on the population, we still have a potential for a lot of mixing, population mixing in those places. So information they can see at the bottom here. I'm hoping I didn't forget anything. I'm not sure if you wanted to add something, Linus. If anything I forgot.
It's fine. I guess it's just you see there's a strong population growth in Bunia, and then you have the 13,000 people departing. It's a relatively high proportion. That's about 5% of the population of the health zone. That's a fairly high high departure rate and corresponding arrival rate. So it's quite an intense population mixing compared to other areas. But that's exactly what you showed actually on the Ituri when you compared the health zones in Ituri before.
Yeah, exactly. So we land back on this situation right here with a high relative turnover in these places.
Yeah.
So similar information can be extracted. So for these other health zones, I'll go a little bit quicker now, so we have time for discussion. So we can interest ourselves to each of the health zones in the province. That would be my key message. For each of the provinces that are covered well enough by the mobile phone network, we can provide such information. So here, another example of Rompoara, so a zone that is located nearby Bunia. There's also a potentially problematic area where we have some cases that have been declared. Also an area with quite a lot of turnover relative to the population, even though in this case, population grows here around 2.3%, so more in line with the national average, so quite different from Bunia, but still an area with quite a lot of mixing, so exchanges of population there. And finally, we have the case of Mongboalu here. Slightly different, so Bunia, provincial capital. Mongboalu, that's a zone that is particularly known for mining activities. So a lot of people moving in and out of this area are generally hard to track. We can still see, again, large amount of departure for this particular zone during this particular month. As expected, still a lot of exchange in the central area, again, around the provincial capital of Bunia, but still large movement here from this mining area to the south here, to the North Kivu. So not as strong, or not as many people as locally, of course, but still significant enough over long distances that this can be of interest to track. Two other important points, the population growth very high here, but that's probably due to the mining activity. Again, Ituri remains a region that is relatively, or province, very instable due to the conflict in the area. But if we look at monthly arrival and departure here, generally more arrival than departure, we can say. But if anything, we can see that this ratio or this amount of both arrival and departure tend to increase through time, more and more mixing in time, with specific events here that have an influence on population, but more and more mixing in the region. So that was it in very brief. What I would invite you and what I would say is that all the information I've shown you now is available online. So we produce this information and we make it available every month through two types of reports. One called the national report that covers the whole country and the province. And reports per province that focus on each individual health zones in the province. If you want to access this information, you just need to scan the QR code here or go to this address, so flowminder.org, and look for the DRC reports. Last bit, so I'm sure I've been showing you information that is information we already provide that we can make available. As Linus touched on a little bit at the beginning, we have the possibility to do daily analysis, to analyze daily mobility, to track those movements, I guess, at a higher temporal resolution. That's something we can do. That's not something we can share widely yet. Some discussions need to happen for that. But we would be very happy, if possible, to also make those analysis and information available, so at a higher time scale, essentially, temporal time scale. Okay, I'll leave it there, and I'll give the presentation back to you, Linus. Sorry, Linus, you're muted if you started.
I did indeed start. Okay, good. Thanks, Romain. So we're moving into Q&A, and I just wanted to say before that feel very free to reach out to some, it's maybe not a complex system in kind of a physics science sense, but there are definitely complexities in how to interpret the data sometimes with the inflows and outflows in different time dimensions. So we very much welcome discussions, and so if you will use it for decision making, then please get in touch, and we're happy to support that. And if you have requests for analysis in relation to the Ebola outbreak, you please let us know and drop us a line at info@flowminder.org, and we'll get in touch. Good. So let's finish there and move over to questions. Just opening it up. Maybe I'll give it to you, Afia, to handle the Q&A.
Yeah, sure. So thank you again, Romain and Linus, for the presentation. It was very clear. So we are open to questions. So you can either write them down on the chat, or you can just put your hands up and ask the question directly to either Linus or Romain. So over to you.
Yeah, I would say definitely feel free to jump in. If anything is unclear, or if there is more information you need about anything, yeah, feel free to talk.
Let me see. Is there any... Yeah, Bernardo, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the seminar and for the information provided. I think it's definitely incredibly valuable at this time. So my question is, starting with how to interpret data analysis, because a lot of what you explained, Romain, made it sound as if it was a good interpretation was to interpret those flows as number of displaced individuals, as in a changing location of residence, whether temporary or permanently. So is this a fair way to look at it? What sort of the time frame at which you're looking? So if you're getting a number of flows between two health zones, is it fair to interpret those as a number of individuals that have, over the course of that entire month, changed residency on between locations? Is that essentially what the data set is capturing?
Yeah, correct. And so we've chosen this particular, so many definitions can exist for residency, right?
Mm-hmm.
For our purposes, we've chosen this monthly basis, because that's the one that made the most sense, at least to track population in time. So the information that we see here is residency. So we assume over a month's residency based on the methodology we develop. We assign a location for a person, and months to months will then detect if this person has been relocating or not, and that's our residence relocation data set, so to say, in a nutshell. That's what we would call long-term mobility. And of course, as I said at the end, shorter term would be looking at more pendular movement, so to say. So it doesn't need to be necessarily where people live. It could be where people travel to. Those two things will be a little bit correlated. But that's, as I said at the end, something we can look into also, but we don't really have, say, full authorization yet to share this data. That's the main issue currently.
Maybe Romain, you want to say the definition we have for assigning a subscriber to a health zone?
Yeah, so I mean, it can get a little bit more, or the methodology itself is a little bit more complicated, but the simple of it is if you're detected enough time through a certain period of time in a certain location, we will assign you home location. I mean, the methodology is a bit more precise and complex than that, but that's the general idea behind it. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you. So we do have Virginia's hands up as well as Javier's one, and then we have a couple of questions on the chat. So I would start with Virginia, and Javier, maybe you could also ask the question that you put in the chat. That would be great once Virginia's question has been answered. Over to you, Virginia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this presentation. Incredibly timely. WFP is mounting our response right now in exactly these health zones. I have three quick questions. One, so do I understand correctly that this data is pre-outbreak, if it's from March? So I guess we can assume the virus started circulating in April, but it was really last weekend that it was confirmed. If so, what is the latest data that you have available? Secondly, would you be able to speak a little bit about the mobile network coverage, especially in these three areas, Rwampara, Bunia, and Mongwalu? That would be really helpful. And then finally, I was curious whether this data has been presented to any part of the government yet. I know that Flowminder works with parts of the DRC government, so just curious whether it's already been shared or if that's something that's in the works. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so perhaps I can take the two first questions. So the first question, so about the timeliness. So this is based on March data. We have the April data. We will release the reports very soon. I guess my main message would be here, since we are looking at long-term data, at least in this presentation I was showing today, the idea is really to have a sense of general mobility pattern in the province, so things we can expect. Of course, having said that, and if this is something that would be possible for us to do, so again, that will be part of discussion we need to have in the coming days. But we could follow that now this movement or this mobility at the daily scale for more recent data. So not something we've done yet. I'll be honest, simply because being busy with a lot of different type of work happening at the same time, but that's something we want to do if possible. Second point, about the coverage. So we have actually a very good coverage in Ituri. So this is Vodacom data. I don't have the particular number for each of these health zones, but I can tell you that it's pretty good. From what I remember, on average, at least 50%, or on average 50% of what we can assume is the population in those health zones is covered in such places. So it's actually in Ituri we have a very, very good coverage. So of course it's always a little bit spatially variable, so I don't remember the specifics for each of the health zones, but for the one I've provided information here today, it is pretty good.
Sorry, Romain, could you just specify, are you talking about radio coverage or are you talking about market share of Vodacom?
Market share, essentially. So how much of the subscribers in Ituri, so say if we look at the simple ratio between population and who is a subscriber of Vodacom in the province. So we have very good coverage there. Yeah. Now, on the point of sharing data with government, I'm not too sure if you have more info, Afia or Linus.
Do you want to talk about
Yes. Linus, did you want to answer? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
sorry, now you go because this is your area.
Yeah. So we have shared the March reports that we have for Ituri to a range of stakeholders in country, including DRC government agencies. And we are currently working to trying to get a meeting with especially the National Institute of Public Health, because they are the one who will be leading or who are leading the response. So this is an ongoing conversation, but we've already shared the data with some of the key stakeholders. I think at this stage we're just waiting to have a formal meeting with them to discuss the data.
Yeah, and please everyone forward to anyone you think is relevant, that invitation email to anyone.
Thank you. So we're going to pass it over to Javier, and then there's a question from Melanie in the chat.
Thank you, colleagues, and thank you for the webinar. Super interesting and no surprise because Flowminder does really amazing stuff. Just a question on the granularity and the safe of this data to be shared on publicly. So I don't know what techniques do you use to anonymize the data so the aggregated data can be shared, and especially now that as people have been mentioning, there is a big response being prepared, and this data will be super useful for that response. So how are you doing to make it available publicly? And also I take that in some cases you could grant access to some researchers to have access to more granular data in a more one-to-one basis, but just to respond more effectively. But on the anonymization part, can you say maybe a few words on your process? Over.
I guess I'll take it on the anonymization and access probably for you, Linus. So anonymization, so in essence, all the data we use, so first of all, so now it's the whole story around privacy and security, right? But this data exists in country, in DRC, on site, so at Vodacom's offices in a server, so the data doesn't leave this server on their site, the raw data. Now, this information in the server that we use, this CDR data, so-called data records, the only interaction is done by the software, so behind the firewall again, in the server in DRC at Vodacom offices. But all the personally identifiable information is pseudonymized, meaning we replace any personal information with a string of random characters that will represent this person, but hide this connection to the real human behind. And beyond that, so once we have this initial data set that has been anonymized, so correct term pseudonymized, the only data we extract then from the server are aggregates, meaning this raw data doesn't leave the server, only compilations of it. And then we have rules. So say if any type of aggregates could be or would be produced using less than 15 people to produce the information, it's redacted. So any kind of information is population scale based on anonymized data, and a population that contains at a minimum 15 people, so you can't then reverse engineer and break this back, so to say, to find individual traces in the information. So in short, that's the principle behind the anonymization here. Yeah.
Good. And I can add there could, of course, be instances where group level data still is sensitive for some reason. And what we've been doing then in DRC and other contexts, we work very closely, generally with UN agencies. We form partnerships, and so these are things we discuss with WFP, for example, and so this is something we have discussed a lot for DRC. The conclusion has been that also in dialogue with the government, that the telecom regulator, that at the health zone level is generally fine to share, but it's something that we keep an eye on all the time. In these areas, data from IOM on their displacement tracking matrix, where they try to count movements on the ground, has approximately the same, or actually sometimes a bit higher resolution. So in general, we think this is fine, but it's something that needs to be monitored continuously.
Thank you. Roma, there was a question from Melanie in the chat, if you could answer that. Can you see it?
Yeah, sorry. It's a little bit hard to mute and unmute while sharing the screen. So the variable that influence the uncertainty of the numbers. Yeah, so on this particular point, I guess that would be a much longer discussion. So the short of it is, we start with information that is subscriber based, right? Subscribers do not represent the entirety of the population, so we need to find a way to scale this information that is based on subscribers, which is a fraction of the population, which you would say is the people that use a mobile phone from a certain operator, potentially at a certain time because they need to be active. And so you need to find ways to scale this back to population. And so that's some of the statistical work we do. So by combination with some survey work we do in country to try to scale back subscriber information to a full population. So it's connected, yeah, to the different points you mentioned. So there are penetration rate, coverage, but there are also other variables. One that might not, for example, directly come to mind, but that is often important, for example, in DRC, is SIM sharing, for example. So how many people, or how many SIMs, if I simplify, correspond to one person in the country, because people might use different SIMs, different operators, etc. So there is a lot of different factors to control for that will bring in some level of uncertainties. So I'm not sure what else to add on this. I would say probably if you're interested about all of those different factors, we publish our methodology. So it's all freely available. So contact us and we could share the particulars on how we calculate everything with you.
Maybe I just add, so the confidence interval is driven by the uncertainty in the survey data that is used to scale the estimates. And you raised, Melanie, an interesting point that it seemed that the uncertainty interval is the width of it is somewhat different months, and that's an interesting reflection. We need to consult our statistician Roland Hosner for that. I don't have a good explanation for that straight off.
Yeah, I guess we would need to look at the particular of the calculation. One thing I wanted to add on this point also is uncertainty. So we are a little bit in a difficult situation also sometimes because we want to provide information, but some information is also of commercial sensitivity to the operator, right? So an obvious example of uncertainty would be the coverage ratio, for example, in certain health zones. I can tell you it's good in Ituri. Now, if I was to tell you the exact number of subscribers in each of the health zones, I'm not sure Vodacom would be very happy with us divulging this information. So there is also a little bit of this tension there on how much we can say and provide, and how much is, so to say, clear in the uncertainties we provide.
Thank you, Romain and Linus. Is there any other question from the audience?
I will say while we're yeah, so I just wanted to flash this again. So just to remind you, if no other question come, don't hesitate to contact us, and you can easily access the data and the reports here. So I'll leave it here while we wait a little bit more.
Thank you, Javier. Yes, I think like Romain said, you've got our email addresses there. You've got our website. If you would like to access the report, we're always open to respond to queries, but also to requests of data sharing and further analysis. So do not hesitate to contact us. So I think we are coming close to ending the session. Linus, I don't know if you want to say something before we close. Romain, something to you as well. So if you could each say something before we close the session. Thank you.
Thanks. No, just thanking everybody for coming, and thanks to Vodacom for providing the data. And yeah, no, all good. Looking forward to more discussions.
No,
Thank you,
yeah,
Linus.
exactly that. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Hopefully we can have more of those discussions on the regular. I mean, we always try to be as available as possible, I would say, to discuss our recent findings. Yeah, and let's see how far we can take this for the purpose of covering the situation currently in the east of the country. A lot of information we could use for decision makers on the ground, essentially.
Thank you to both, and thanks again to everyone for taking the time to join us this afternoon. And we look forward to receiving your messages. And like Romain said, we hope that we're going to organize another session, maybe sometime once we have the latest reports ready. We would definitely aim to have another session to discuss what we're going to be in terms of movements, what we're going to be finding out in the reports. Thank you so much, and have a lovely rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks so
everybody.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.